Hello, folks. We have a Jason Sands live interview exclusively. It was on TikTok. It is now going onto YouTube for you to take a look at. It was 2 hours long. We do have a part two, and in part two, Lenville Logan joins him, and that's over 2 hours, about 2 to 3 hours as well. So sit back, get yourself a brew, and enjoy.
Oh, I'm using audio only? How do I? Oh.
So if you click on your picture, it'll show a camera where you can come on.
Live access needed to go live.
Oh, great. I think we need 1,000 followers to show your face.
Right, everybody in the chat, if you're not already following Jason, please start following Jason so we can get him on the screen while we're live. Thank you.
Well, at least you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Just give it 1 more minute. We're just waiting on one more person. If it doesn't come, we'll start.
Hello, everybody who's saying hello to me. Let me try to get my sister the link as well. Yeah, I think close to 900, so it's going to take a while to get to 100 more, unless we have a huge amount of people. All right, hang on.
Let's go.
Oh, Jason's in. Nice to see you, Jason.
Hello. How's everybody doing over in the UK?
Yeah, you've hit the UK. You've hit the big time here with the UK TikTokers. You are with us now. We'll protect you. We'll look after you on this app. Don't you worry about that.
As they'd say, you're not all bloody dead from these bloody politicians, right?
Oh, no. We don't talk about that kind of stuff. We're not interested.
No, we're not gonna. I'm just being funny. I know that you guys have been getting through the ringer like we have over here in America.
I've seen a lot of the stuff on X and stuff like that. It's just been horrible, like keeping up with it. And it's
yeah.
It's a lot. This is a friendlier app. You'll find that out.
Oh, good. Yeah.
It's a lot.
Wanting to have a few more friendly conversations. I know I get pretty lambasted sometimes.
They're all out for themselves on that app. They're just there to. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you show. They will always discredit you in some way. It doesn't matter. They just can't have a conversation, and they'll try and tell you not to speak to people and stuff like that. It's not on. Everybody's got the right to speak to someone. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got the right to make their own mind up. My followers make their own mind up. I make my own mind up. Why these people attack people on X? I don't understand. It's not for me anyway.
I don't know. Some people are just like that. I don't mind people not believing me. I just don't like it when they get rude.
Here he is.
We know that here.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Tall, dark, and night.
Good, Dan. Hi, Jason. Nice to meet you.
Hello. Good to meet you guys too.
Right. I'll start off, Jason. Thank you for being here. Can you just give us a quick 5-minute summary of your past, what jobs you've been doing, and yeah, just a quick brief, if that's okay, for everyone.
Yeah, okay. Let's see. Back in 2022, when I was giving my testimony, I was over in Hawaii working with DIA. I was helping to set up training programs for the intelligence community people, mainly the ones that are supposed to be the experts for the China problem set. So I did that for a bit, realized I was a little bit too far from home because I just had been separated from my wife at the time. And I took the job in Hawaii a little out of sorts, let me put it that way. So anyway, I went to Hawaii just to get as far away as I could. And now I just want to be close to my grandson, so I found a nice job in Maryland. That's got me a bit closer with the NSA and U.S. Cybercom. Did that for about 2 years, and then started working for the Secretary of Defense for another special access program. And that's about where I'm at now. So that brings you up to snuff with 2024, 2025.
Oh, sweet. All right, I'll just pass it on to Tinfoil Hat, and then yeah, go ahead, mate.
Yeah, hi Jason. Thank you ever so much for coming. We are all very, very excited. I know quite a few of us are excited in regards to what you were saying in regards to the species of aliens that you encountered and things. But I wanted to just ask, obviously, about your time on Dreamland and your first experiences, whether you could sort of elaborate on your first sort of experience when you started on the program.
Yeah, well, the first time I went up to knew about Dreamland was actually when I was going through training to do, learn how to do all the operations that we did at Black Mountain, which was to train all the American and Allied air crews on how to fight through a war that has, where you have to suffer through some radio jamming and things like this, where, you've got to be able to get through or fight through all the noise to get your bombs on target. So that's what we were training to do, so we could do it safely and learn how to operate the equipment properly. And right outside the front door, you could look over across the plain of the plateau, and there is the ring of mountains for Groom Lake or Dreamland, and that's the first time I actually got introduced to it. And then about a year or 6 months to a year after that first visit, they introduced me into the program, and then I got to fly into the actual Groom Lake installation, and that was pretty nice. It was very unique. I had the base commander show me around the entire base and show me that here's this hangar, it does this, and this is what we do with it. Here's some radars over here, there's the weather station over there, and by the way, there's the burn pit, don't go around that. That sort of thing. So that's how it all set off, but it was a really good 3 years of being in the program. I learned a lot, and that was kind of how it went. And then I later on started actually my next duty station was to go to RAF Mildenhall down in Cambridgeshire. So I got to spend 6 more years there in England. And just so you know, I know I'm actually British, or was born in Britain.
Okay.
To a U.S. Army soldier, so I've got American citizenship by birth. But
so it's true then, you could be related to UFO Anomaly, which I said before you joined the live.
I could be, you're right. I was born up in the Yorkshire area, up in Harrogate by Menwith Hill. That's where my dad was stationed.
Oh, that's not that far from me.
Yeah.
The listening station.
I was there.
Yep, it is a listening station, you're correct. And I found out later on in life, after I was most of the way through my career in the Air Force, but my dad had kind of a lot of parallel jobs that I did. He just did it for the Army. I did it for the Air Force. So there's kind of a little bit of a learning curve there as well. But it was all good. He'd done quite a lot of different things in Germany, like I had done as well. So we kind of paralleled each other's careers. And I didn't even realize it until after I was in and out of the program. So that was kind of an interesting thing. Because I know people always say that, the kind of the strangeness follows them around. And when you go into these special programs, sometimes it's because another family member has been in the program before, or a friend, or a close family friend. And maybe that's one of the reasons they picked me for the job as well.
Yeah,
so
that's one of my questions. How did you become involved in a classified program?
Well, I had already passed my, my investigation for my top secret SCI clearance. So that's not the top clearance, but it's very, very close to it. So I'd already been through that in 1989, so I could become an intelligence person. I actually wasn't an intelligence person at the start. My first job in the Air Force was fixing airplanes. I used to repair their sheet metal and their the airframes and things like that. I was an airframe repair specialist. So,
did you have a settled life, like a private life, like a missus and all that? Did you have anything like that? It was all settled and.
Not at that point. That came about a little bit after I joined the program. So they weren't, I didn't have the children or anybody around for the first, I think.
No, I was just asking because obviously Bob Lazar said that they didn't want him because he had problems with his wife and stuff. So I just wondered if you had just a really nice family life going on and looked at you as someone that was responsible.
Oh yeah. Well, I've always been a big dad kind of father figure. I love being a dad. being a husband and all that good stuff. The family life. I've always been a big family man, but that didn't come until I think 1991. And I got on station at Nellis in 1990. So that's about the time frame that it happened, and then I kept on with the program until 1994. So that's what the timeline was for me getting onboarded. So the first year I was there on station at Nellis, that's when they happened. I guess the reason, to answer your question, the reason they invited me, I think, was I did a few things that were good to be an analyst for. Like, I had a good memory. They noticed that. I was able to figure some things out on some of the missions, and I know that I was joined by some of these people that I didn't know at the time, who were in the program already. There's 3 of the guys in the program already before they invited me, but I went on a mission with them for various things that we did, and I think they liked the work I did, and that's how I ended up getting invited. I also hung out with them. We got along great as just friends before I even got invited to the program, so I think that was another factor. So there was no paperwork involved. It was more like handpicking people. They knew, apparently they got to know me. They liked me. They liked my level of work and attention to detail. And I think that's what got me in. They look more for the skill sets, I think.
So there would have been no paper trail of this.
Yeah, I think that's the other piece to it as well, is that on the outside it's easier to just take a person out of their job and kind of let them continue doing that job, but have them go out on these clandestine or secretive missions is what it was. We used all the same equipment. The only thing we did in addition to the usual telecommunications assessments was just to add some OSI agents who would also do the physical security aspects. And then we'd all debrief the staff at whatever site we were at. So that's how we would do it. But we were doing this work for the government. We were doing the work as friends, but we were acting as enemies to, try to break into the bases, try to break into their telecommunications, and then produce a report as to what we could find out so that they could fix it at the end of the 2-week mission. And then we would give them a final report after 90 days that had all the details and so on and so forth. And that's what we did. So
cool, thanks for that. That answers my question on that. And I'll pass over to someone else now for the next question.
All right, Dan Knightley, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Jason. Yeah, as I say, I think it's just want to reiterate what everyone else has said. It's great to have you in the chat and have you transfer over to the dark side of TikTok. Look, basically, your encounter that you talked about was that at Nellis Air Force Base? Is that correct?
yes, that was after I was already out of the program. So I got out of the program about January, February of that year. And then October, I have this encounter after I'm done being part of the program. So it was just a drive up to work to do the normal job of training the pilots on how to survive in that wartime environment. We were going back up to Black Mountain that day. So that's when that encounter occurred.
And so when this obviously happened, I mean, I know jokingly a lot of people are saying that your leather jacket is somewhere in Zeta Reticuli. I'm not sure if that's accurate. But
yeah, actually that came up. Yeah. But yes, I did think that the person, since they had a blue tint to their skin, I thought it was a person who was going hypothermic and that they needed some medical aid. And all I had was the, jacket on my back to help them. So, I was kind of in a rush getting my jacket off as we were getting closer to the guy or the entity, not knowing who he was. And when I popped open the door, again, I couldn't see him very well until I shut the door and had my jacket off. And then I shut the door as I was taking my jacket off. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? And that's when it became definitely an experience of a lifetime.
And do you recall? Sorry, just to add to that, do you remember? I'm not sure if you ever said this, but do you remember how tall he was? Was he around the same height as you? Was he a bit bigger, a bit smaller?
He was smaller. I stand about 6 foot. I'm a pretty big guy. About 220, 230 pounds at the time. very muscular, much younger than I am today. But anyway, and he was standing about 5'6", maybe. He was about half a foot shorter than me, I'd say.
Yeah. Because I remember you saying that when he was sort of running, it looked like he was running in a stiff wind or something, right?
Yeah, because he had a funny run. I knew it was windy that day, but the wind was not that strong, and it looked like he was, fighting like a hurricane strength wind, and it looked like he was going to fall over at any point. And I thought maybe that was, again because he was, needing help medically, because he was, dying, is what I actually thought, because that's all that happened with me. The way I took it in was like, hey, we got to get out here and help this guy. This guy's dying, So that's what I thought initially.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing that could be down to sort of like, well, their equivalent of what maybe bone density could be, or maybe gravity is different from where they're from, or something, maybe why they were struggling on Earth, or something of that nature.
Yes, I would say so, because if there's life out there in the universe, depending on your atmosphere and your gravity, you might have a taller set of bipedal beings that live there, or shorter ones, depending on what kind of atmosphere you have or gravity. So I'd say, yeah, that's a pretty good assumption.
All right. So one last bit just on that, and I'll pass over to someone else. Have you, since that experience, have you found anything profound that's taken place, sort of, with your mind and the way you perceive things? Not from sort of a spiritual aspect, but just like anything physical that you've seen since, or something that's changed in terms of perspective?
Well, I have seen other craft since then. I did have one encounter actually when I was stationed in RAF Mildenhall as well. I have some missing time with that. But yeah, it did affect me. When I had the conversation with this pilot from what I think is another world, he was talking to me verbally, but there was a telepathic component. And that experience was very different than anything I think I've ever felt before, because that was literally what I feel like we were sharing a mind space where I actually got to feel him and he got to feel me at an emotional level and mental level. And the impression he left me with was how civilized and respectful he was. And that's something that kind of remains with me today, is that it was a type of mental control that he had that I did not, because, most of us, we're kind of like dogs, squirrel, squirrel.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this, look at that. And our mind is all over the place at any given moment. Whereas his was like very, very focused and completely respectful with me. And I've always tried, and there was a sense of peacefulness there too, on an emotional sort of undertone level. I could feel that peacefulness and civility all the time. And I've always striven since then to feel that way myself, because we can all control our thoughts. I've done a pretty good job of trying to emulate that in my life. I've gotten better at it over time, but that's something that I've always thought I'd want to aspire to all my life. So yeah, you're right, and it does affect me spiritually as well, but yes, mentally even it does.
I mean, yeah, I mean that must be pretty profound. I mean, the way you described it, from what I recall, is you said it was almost like he had like a form of etiquette to be patient and wait for you to respond, sort of telepathically, I'm guessing, which was something you said that really was pronounced during the interaction that you had.
Yeah, that's correct. If you could imagine, like if we and all your listeners, if you could imagine us having to grow up in a world where we're all telepathic, you would find that all of us, even as infants, would be feeling each other, and we couldn't all be yelling at the top of our lungs mentally at each other, and eventually you'd learn how to control it at a very early age. And I think that's kind of how it goes for these other beings that are very telepathic, and that's why they're so peaceful, is because
That's a great point, that that you just said there. I never thought of that.
Yeah.
You're born with this. You learn to control it, and you don't see it as some sort of weapon. You don't see it as people being able to read your mind, because you've controlled it from an early age. So you've got nothing to worry about, because you're empathetic to people and stuff, and you feel stuff. So yeah, I like that answer.
Yeah, it's just it's their way of communicating, just like we are. Like, our mode of communicating is mainly oral, audible, speaking like we're doing now, and I'm being respectful when one of you speaks, and vice versa. You guys do the same thing. Where there's an etiquette, in other words, there's an etiquette to it all, and mentally there's an etiquette as well that I definitely felt from him that was much more civilized than my mind was.
Wow, that's truly fascinating. I mean, sorry, I have so many more, but please, someone else jump in.
Yeah, can I just ask one more? But I don't know if we've gone a bit forward with that. What was you responding to something before you had this sighting of this alien being?
Responding as in
was you being called out to go and check something out?
Oh no, we were just convoying up for the day. We usually did two different things, or two different pushes. That's what we called them. We had the morning push, and that was one air kind of aircrew practice where they all go out and they fight like they would in wartime. And of course, they're not going to shoot each other down, so there's no weaponry like that unless they're dropping bombs. But they're not going to be shooting at each other. So during the morning, we have an AM push, and in the afternoon, we had a PM push, and we were just headed up for the day. And we would typically just get in the cars at the hotel that was in Beatty, Nevada, and we would travel north and northwest to the gate from there. And once we got onto the test range, that's when the whole thing occurred after we were traveling for a little bit onto the test range. Okay. But we were convoying in about 3 cars, and there was about 2 to 3 people per car. In mine, there was 4 people, and I've tried to reach out to them over this issue because everybody wants to have me have collaboration and everything. I found the driver, but he ghosted me on LinkedIn after I started mentioning the UFO incident. He just ghosted me. The fellow in the passenger's front seat, he seems to have disappeared. Nobody can find him. And then the young lady who was sitting next to me in the second seat to my right, they found her, but she didn't want to come forward. She was too scared. So I've had other people also, since the movie came out, James Fox movie and the program. There's a guy that actually was part of that movie as well that said he had been contacted by 2 people that were there the week before and had seen the UFO that this pilot was flying around in. And he said that, yes, they corroborated my story, and I think James Fox got a confirmation or something from them and had a written document that he presented, I think, during the Julian Dory show that I did. And so that's all we have from them, though. They did not want to go public. They want to remain anonymous. So it's kind of sad that we still have to deal with a lot of that, but there's so much, I don't know how to put it. I guess the governments are so horrible to people like myself that it really has put a lot of stigma into it. So there's a lot of people that were there, but they did not want to come forward because of one reason or another.
Okay. Hey Jason, this is Knight. What?
Oh, we lost Knight. He'll be back. I don't know what happened there. Okay, if I might ask Jason a question. Hello, Jason. It's absolutely great to meet you. Do you know what? I find your story really fascinating on a personal level. For many people, it's got to be kind of difficult to digest because obviously they don't have experiences to measure, what you've been through to kind of make sense of it all. But on a personal level, I mean, obviously you're a real military man. You've got some solid protocols that you run your life by, and you've seen some extraordinary things in your lifetime that most people, like I say, can't even comprehend. But on a personal level, you've had 2 significant events that you've talked about literally in the last 15 minutes. How did you actually internalize that on a personal level? Because I kind of get the feeling it can't just be as simple as getting up every day, putting the keys in the car and going to work, right?
No, it's not like that at all. After my experiences, um, there's a difference in me. This is the telepathic experience has been lifelong. The knowledge that we're not alone is definitely something that tempers my walk in life, so to speak. It gives me an awareness to know that there are other people out there and that I want to be part of the people that they would aspire to want to meet. Um, Simply because I've been exposed to it, and I wish that was something everybody could experience, like you say. But it's difficult. They don't. Once you've had your experience, of course, you don't need anybody to tell you what's what, and that's kind of where I come from. But I still have compassion for folks that haven't had those experiences, and I never have, forced anybody to believe me. That's not the point. I'm trying to tell you the truth that there's a program, and it's not just in America. I'm fairly sure that Japan, China, uh, Russia, and many other countries have their own retrievals, or own crashes that they have knowledge of, and they're being tucked away, and the governments are likewise being secretive about it. So um, there's a small cadre of people that do know about it. I think there's the governments or the military that are involved are sometimes a little too heavy-handed with it. I think there needs to be more of a human aspect to the interactions that I was part of. It was quite obvious, even with the gentleman in the desert that I met that one day. And he definitely had a very disgusted feeling about when I mentioned, because he was wanting to repair his craft, and he wanted some material called tantalum. And he was like, immediately when I started to point at the mountain range for Dreamland and say, well, they've got some high technical stuff there, they might be able to help you. He was, the level of disgust that I felt from him emotionally, I could tell he did not like them. So to me, that just says that there's something not right, even in the relationship we have with them. I think it's not a free for all, and it's not always nice, So even though the military and the government may think that they have things under control because maybe they think everything's a threat or could become a threat, I think that has weighed heavy on their actions and their decisions in interacting with these people that are from off-world. And quite frankly, I think it's time to have a change. We're not living in World War II era anymore. This is a completely different day and age.
Yeah.
I can understand that after World War II, everybody was scared, and they made the decision, they made early on in the program. But we're not there anymore. So that's my point here, is that I'm trying to get to another level where we still maintain our national security here in America. However, I think that the knowledge that we are not alone belongs to everybody.
Yeah. It's interesting because I don't know.
Hey,
that.
Jason, just one question. What motivates you?
Oh, what motivates me?
Okay.
Yes.
What motivates you to go forward? And do you still feel his presence after the encounter?
Yes, I do still feel their presence, not just him, because you got to understand, with telepathy, they're linked to each other. So there's kind of a group think and there's an individual think. And I definitely felt that as well. So I'd say, yes, I do feel connected now to that fabric of telepathy or consciousness, I guess, that people allude to a lot of times, because they're all connected. We're not. We're not the ones plugged into this. But when you experience it, it feels very natural. It does.
Do you think, though, your experience was part of a trigger that not only changed your perspective as far as these beings that you encountered each day, but the landscape completely changes. I mean, when you took that job, you possibly never knew that you would be in for having experiences like this. And this is what I was saying, like about how you internalize these things. You know, if it wasn't just going to work every day, and you've obviously got some sort of you captured some sort of spirituality from it. I mean, did you kind of become introverted at all by these experiences?
Yeah, I got really quiet. And just to finish answering Knight's question about my motivation, they're kind of related. Yeah, the motivation was very quiet at first. That I had to internalize all of it, figure it out, because it really shook me quite badly. Because I was a person that, you know, believed in God. I have a faith. You know, if you ask me, I will tell you, yes, I'm a faithful guy. I go to church, that stuff. So it rocked that world. And then eventually, after I got a little bit more educated and educating myself, reading about it, it was like, you know, it really doesn't. Everything I've heard and seen really doesn't go against any of the world religions, and the way that they describe some of these eyewitness contact with these strange beings that have been there literally for thousands of years in our historical record. So there was that to deal with, my faith to deal with, but my overall motivation to come forward, I think, is what you're getting at, Knight. Is that what it is? You wanted to ask me what motivated me to come forward.
Yes.
I had seen a news article about a triangular-shaped craft in Indonesia, and it looked like they were participating in either trafficking or some kind of drug trafficking or human trafficking. And I got concerned, and I was like, I know what that platform is, and I don't like what they're doing with it. Hopefully they're doing something proper with it, but it looks to me like there might be something bad going on here. And besides that, when I was on the mission, when I was in the program, excuse me, got a little bit of a froggy voice today, but when I was on mission, there was also a telecommunications thing that we had intercepted where they actually said verbatim that the NHI wanted their things back, and the prisoners released is the other thing they said. And if they didn't do it by the next time this periodic meeting takes place, and they were going to be coming back in like the 2030s or thereabouts. It's a window of time, not an exact time, is what I heard. But sometime around the 2030s, you know, give or take 5 or 10 years, whatever, that's when they're expected to come back, and that's when we're expected, these program folks are supposed to bring back all of the stolen technology and all of their biological, you know, remains or whatever else is in our possession. And if not, they were going to put people to death inside the program. So I had those two big reasons there. Number one, in Indonesia, that they were using the platform for maybe something wrong. And I also had a sense of urgency because my friends are still in the program. And you've got to understand that 90% of the people that work in the program don't even know about this other stupid stuff that goes on. Most of it's just, you know, normal reverse engineering of technologies, from captured tanks and aircraft and things. But there's this very small area of exotic material that's recovered with biological material. And so 90% of the people are just doing a patriotic job, think they're doing something cool. And then there's a smaller bunch that knows what it's all about. And then there's an even smaller bunch that are making some bad decisions. So that's why I went forward, is I had some concerns. Ended up, I found out that there were 40 other whistleblowers like myself. And strangely, we don't know each other, but we all just happen to have the same concerns. Lo and behold, you know, here's a bunch of people that are highly qualified, highly credentialed, been through polygraphs a number of times, just like myself. And all of a sudden, you've got all these people coming forward to Congress, claim, you know, making the same or having the same concerns. So that's when our government here in America really started taking it seriously. And I think also, you know, Lou Elizondo coming forward with the videos of the craft that he had, Tic Tac and all other stuff. Those all also impacted that sort of a push. So that's what motivated me. I felt it was the right time. I'd had my mouth shut all that time. I even kept it from my wife, who got pissed off once I started coming forward. She's like, "What? You were in a program?" Like, "Yeah, I got in the program just before we got married." Blah blah blah. She got really pissed at me. So that's how that all ended up. But that's what motivated me, was my concern, and just all those other events that had occurred. So that was. It was bottled up inside me for quite a long time about my friends, though, that they might actually be in danger. If they return all the equipment and the biologic.
Right, sweet. Quick question. So you're saying when you met that alien in Nevada, he needed some material, and you suggested to him go to speak to these other people, but he hated them. He didn't like them. So from what I'm thinking, he must have knowledge of us bringing craft down, capturing other aliens, and there's a lot of people saying these beings are being tortured, they're being tested on. Have you any knowledge of us bringing craft down and torturing these beings and holding them hostage, basically?
Yes, that was something I talked with Jake Barber, who's also come forward this year. But yeah, we talked about the biologics. There's also other witnesses that weren't even related to any of this, that or my testimony or my whistleblowing either. And there's a fellow by the name of, I think his last name is Herman. He had an encounter with the same sorts of beings that were supposed to have been downed in Roswell. And they were wanting him to go to the president or Congress to ask for their craft and their biologics back. They wanted the remains of their people back. And Herman was like, I don't know what to do about all this. But the actual NHI, you can see the concern they have. And they ended up that when they found out that Herman could not help them, they just said, well, now we're forced to have to go to our government and seek restitution, because.
Can you just repeat that again? I missed a little part there.
Well, Herman is another gentleman who had an abduction experience near a train track, and they got him on board. And as they're going through this experience with this person, I think it's his last name is Herman. It's not his first name, and that's what I'm talking about. Is that these beings spoke to Herman about this problem in Roswell, and that they described the Roswell crash. They described how their people were mistreated. They described how the craft is not even returned to them, and that they wanted all of that, and asked him and pleaded with him to go to our Congress in America to get their people and their craft back. But Herman was like, hey, I'm just a nobody. I can't just tell the president to give something like that back. So they just said, well, we're forced to have to go to our higher government and get our own restitution for this. So that's that guy's story. So you've got all these unrelated people that have had all these experiences that can collaborate one with the other, that this was a real thing that had happened. And all the way back to Roswell. And so, yes, it's quite possible that we have been mistreating or maybe imprisoning some of these beings.
Do you think we're stupid enough to fight back if they do come back? Do you think they're planning to retaliate for this?
I think, from what I understood about the telepathic demeanor of these people, they are quite capable of killing us. Yes. However, I think they are more civilized also.
No, I mean us.
Yeah, I mean they were not going to come after. I don't think they would come after everybody on Earth. No, I think what they would do is they would probably seek restitution on the people they find responsible in the program. So it's mainly a threat against those people that did the bad and the dirty deed. They're the ones who.
Interesting.
Sorry, I was just going to extend on that. So, Jason, from your perspective, from what you've seen so far in terms of some sort of retaliatory situation, it would be a focused group of people of which maybe cause them harm specifically. So they are aware that it's not an entire race of people that are nefarious, right? In that concept.
Yeah, and the reason I would say that is, again, from Herman's account, apparently the beings that crashed in the Roswell Desert said that they at first thought that it was a directed energy attack from a weapon that we attacked them with. And they thought they were going to retaliate right then and there, but they quickly did some analysis and they're like, oh, it's a radar system. And they're like, oh, they didn't mean to shoot us down, but it did, mess with our onboard navigation computer or something. He said, the being said that that's what happened. And the first one crashed, the other one tried to save it, the second one came in. Same thing happens to it after about, so many seconds. Apparently their navigation computer gets, discombobulated from these new radars that were invented during World War II, which is about when Roswell crash occurred. So this is a new system here for them to be encountering here on Earth. So they were just taken totally by surprise. And yeah, they did think initially it was an attack, but because they're so civilized, they quickly did analysis, and instead of shooting everybody in sight, they actually backed off and said, okay, well, it was just an accident. But then they had the residual thing where they actually wanted their stuff back, and I think that's when the U.S. government made their decisions, thinking, oh, well, you're a Russian mutant thingy bobber, and you're just trying to make us another threat. So they had some really stupid ideas come out about that time, about, because you just fought World War II, we didn't trust anybody. So we just thought everything was a threat. So yeah, there were some probably very bad decisions made early on.
And do you have any idea what their intentions are, what they're doing here in terms of why they keep showing up in such small numbers, why it's not a large group just to say hi? Like, is there any particular reason you think it's happening?
I agree with what Mr. Charles Hall said in his Millennial Hospitality book. He was the weatherman out there at Dreamland and had interfaced with the tall whites much more than I ever did. And he said that they come for all sorts of reasons, just like we do. Some of them are here just to get to the next planet, so to speak. They're just here to refuel and have some downtime, and during their downtime, they're bored just like us. Some of them like to, go out, fly around, see the sights, kind of a thing. Other ones are here, they're scientific and they're researching, because they find us interesting. And the biodiversity on our planet is quite diverse, and I think that's something that's kind of unique about our planet. There's not a lot of planets like ours. Even in our own solar system, everything else is pretty desolate compared to what our planet looks like. So for all those reasons, yeah, they kind of are intelligent beings. They like to entertain themselves just as we do. Intelligent beings tend to want that.
Well,
All right. Thank you for that, Jason. Right. I think the full hat has a question he really wants to ask. So I'll let him ask the question.
Okay.
And a lot of people want to know in the comments.
So you mentioned on the Joe Rogan podcast a number of species that you collected intel on, and one of those was what I like to call the lizard people. And you said that whenever they came up, it was sort of quickly swept under the carpet. I was just wondering, could you elaborate on sort of the conversations that you had about that and what was involved and why you think that it was so much swept under the carpet and why that certain species wasn't spoken about?
Well, on the mission time, all I could tell you is that yes, it was an uncomfortable conversation with whomever brought the reptilians up. Why? I really don't know. I've had conversations also secondary to that with other people that have experienced abductions or reptilians showing up in their bedrooms, that sort of a thing. And I've also read up on them as well to try to understand what this was, because I already, had known about the tall whites, the grays, the reptilians. And so the reptilians were kind of a mystery to me. And from my research and from what I've been told by other people, there seems to be a race that is very malign. And they even have a penchant for blood, apparently. There's a number of other reptilian species that some of them actually are, some of them are actually amphibious, and other ones are actual grays that just have scaly skin. So there's other ones that tend to look like reptilians, but they're not this evil type of reptilian. So a lot of them are mainly described as being good, or here for no nefarious reasons. They're just here for scientific or exploratory type things. But there is this one race that seems to really shake people's world, and they're a real horror story according to some accounts. Now, putting that all together and going back to my mission days, I don't know which reptilians they were talking about in that case, because if there's like 4 different types, I wouldn't be able to tell you which one they were talking about because they shut up so quickly. I never got a description as to, exactly it was this race or that race or the reptilian, or whatever. And I never got to that from the mission. So I can't confirm. All I can do is go off of what I've been told by other people that have experienced it. And that's what I'm telling you.
What was that story you said about the reptile? It looked like a crocodile looking at you.
You're talking about later on when I had to do dirty work?
Yeah.
Oh, that one? No, that wasn't a crocodile. It looked more like a...
No, the eyes. You said the eyes. There was like a crocodile's eyes looking at you.
That, yeah. Those were just very large eyes. But yeah, there's some pictures that people did of a 3-dimensional drawing, or 3-dimensional. They've done a 3-dimensional drawing of a drawing I'd made to kind of show people this is what I remember this person looking like.
And how did you come across that? How did you come across that person or being? Was it in a meeting or something? Or?
Well, it was out in the desert. He had been, I think, probably had a altercation with the people at Dreamland. That seems to be the best theory that I've been told, because I was, I've been talking with other analysts myself to try to figure out, well, what's the most likely scenario that this guy's sitting here with a broken craft that needs help, And I think the best story that fits is he was probably working for Dreamland, ended up in some kind of an altercation, he got into an argument, he steps into a craft and says, I'm leaving, and they shoot at him. And he ends up being stuck on the range for the weekend. I encounter him the following Monday, and I run into him, and I have my conversation with him. And that's kind of how I think that it might have gone down. And it would also explain the uniform he was wearing, which looked military. Because if he was working with the people on site at Dreamland, as a worker bee, he'd probably wear the same uniform we did. So it would make sense a little bit more for that, because I've always wondered, well, why on earth would he be wearing a military uniform, I never could figure that out until somebody said, no, maybe he had an altercation, and that was what his job was, to work there. And he was
and he asked you for tritium, is that right? The element tritium.
Tintium, that's the one people are. Honestly, I've had such a whole time trying to remember what he said. But I've talked to my scientific friends, and they all say, no, Jason, stop saying tritium, tantillium. It was tintium. And I'm like, okay, tintium, got it. So tintium is the material that they say I should be saying all the time, just so I don't confuse folks.
All right, thank you for that.
Jason, I've got a quick question. First of all,
I've
got a quick question, Jason. First of all, thank you for your service. In regards to the telepathic exchange that you had with that being, was there any type of energy, or not energy, but imagery involved with that telepathic exchange, or was it more just like a knowledge download? Was there any kind of imagery that was exchanged?
Yes, there was imagery. Like when he was discussing the material he wanted to repair his craft, in my head, I still have it emblazoned in my brain. It's like a picture of a catalog that was opened up on that particular part of his craft, and I could see all the technical specifications for it. So there was a sort of description and a living image inside my head of what he was describing. So yeah, there was some imagery involved in that list.
Wow, interesting.
I've got scientific people that want to pull that out of me, because
is that something you've retained at all?
Oh yeah, I retained it. Right now, I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking about how small and minute the mechanisms were, they worked at the very, very small level, atomic level. The polarity of the molecules themselves played a part in the way that the energies would flow. And for some reason, they were able to turn the polarity on and off. They're also able to rotate the atoms. And apparently the other thing I knew inherently from his description was the smaller that you go, the less you have entropy and the more you have energy. There's no energy trade-off when you get that small. Because as most of you would know, if you did anything with a car battery or trying to create free energy, there's always resistance that has to be overcome. And at some point, at least in our knowledge of technology, that you can't overcome a certain barrier of that kind of exchange of power. And that's why free energy is so hard to try to attain. But for some reason, getting smaller makes it easier because there's not as much resistance or friction or something. But I knew that inherently from the picture and description he provided me.
Thank you, Jason. Grant, you have a question you want to ask?
Yeah, hi Jason. Thanks for taking your time to speak to us all today.
Yep.
Jason, you said how you were awoke one night and forced to unalive NHA. Could you tell us some more about that in as much sort of detail as possible? And could the entity tell that some harm was coming to it, please?
Oh, you mean, if he felt threatened?
Yes, yes.
Oh, no, he actually seemed a bit pissed. It was like, I can't believe these people did this to me, and they're disgusting murderers and barbarians, is what I felt from him. That level of disgust, he wasn't scared at all. He was like, just, he wanted to get away from them because they were so bothersome. That was the feeling. It wasn't because he wanted to kill them, though. He wasn't in that kind of a thing, because, when you're in a, fight or flight kind of a scenario, you're either very pissed or very scared.
You've spoken how you were personally asked to unalive an entity, and when you were that you had to do that, could the entity tell that you were coming to
Yes, I did do some dirty work. Yeah, I did do some dirty work when I got kicked out of the program. And the reason I got kicked out was I wanted to bring my wife and kids to the zoo while I was in Arizona, New Mexico. And it was it's a mutual thing. How I was like, if I can't have a wife and kids, screw you guys. It's kind of what I thought. I didn't say it out loud, but that's the way I was feeling when they got me in trouble. But then I realized how badly I screwed up when I had to turn in my badge and get read out. And my friends all told me to stay in the car. They went inside to go talk to whoever was, booting me out of the program. And they came out looking very grave. And they just said, yeah, Jay, because I was like, well, how'd it go? They're like, Jay, they wanted to kill you. And I'm like, ha, 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 yeah, sure they did. And they're like, no, Jay, they wanted to put a fucking bullet in your head. That's how badly you fucked up. And I was like, oh, shit. So, anyway, that's when the dirty work began, because I think in exchange for my life, they had to offer me up to do this dirty work crap. And, I don't like talking about that at all. There's a lot of PTSD wrapped up in it. But I'll chalk it up to this, just in summary. It's just, you've heard from Jake Barber after I said all that stuff in December about having to kill, an alien.
Yeah.
Well, yes, that does happen. And when Jake Barber came out, he also described how messy it is to do the retrievals. It's obvious he actually described how he had to compete with other treasure hunters and retrieval people to locate that one barrel full of hard drives in a lake somewhere. He said there's other teams out there, and he had to be prepared to kill people. And he was asked point blank, did you have to? And he was like, well, yeah, I suppose so. So retrievals are a very messy business. And
so he's saying it's privatized companies against privatized companies.
Exactly. It's a very priced item. It's like you finding a stack of Spanish gold bars from, you know, a shipwreck or something. These craft are highly valuable. Even the biologics and living pilots can be messed with to make deals to, you know, coerce them into giving us more secrets about their technology. And that's kind of what happens. So you've got a fight or flight mode, really. I would imagine most of the aliens that come to this planet probably are not even in the craft anymore. They probably send drones just so they won't get shot down and tracked down and hunted down. But yeah, there's probably some also that I think that's what I had to encounter, was that there's some of these beings are not very nice, or they're in a mode where, you know, it's either you kill them or they're going to kill you. And so it's a freaking messy business. All in all, it's just a freaking messy business. And that's what I'll tell you as summarizing all of that dirty work up. That's what it's all about. This retrieval stuff sucks so bad. It's literally like two treasure hunters converging on a shipwreck and shooting each other. That's what's going on.
Yeah. I appreciate you. Thanks for answering the question, Jason. Appreciate you, mate.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Hallucination should ask a question now. He's not asked one yet.
Yeah, go on, mate.
Yeah, no, I do have another question. It kind of ties into the dirty work part. I know you kind of summed it up, but were you on a team when you would have to do that, or was that a solo thing?
Yeah, we were kind of like conscripts, I guess you could call us. But yeah, it was a team. There was four of them, or four of us, or five.
It was a team. So
it was mainly four of us all the time.
And it was others that were kind of in the same boat? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for some reason or another, they got conscripted into that part of the business of this program, yes.
All right, okay. Thank you.
They definitely, they didn't want to be there either, let me put it that way. Nobody wants to do that job, unless you're really sick.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Thank you for that, Jason. I have a question. So while you're on the program, how many different species were you told or were you aware of?
Those are only three. The tall whites, the grays were the main ones, the reptilians to a small degree. I do have other encounters as a child with my family where I would say they were probably Nordics, had platinum hair, blue eyes, they wore gray, silky looking jumpsuits. And they were mainly very benevolent, though. They are always protective. They seem to always show up right when me or my family were going through a rough time. So I do have those experiences as well. And my mother could testify to the fact that she saw them both times with me as a child, and that she can verify that on her own. I'll probably put that in my book as well. I'll have her write her own little letters on that so that she can verify that, yeah, I was there and this really happened and that kind of stuff.
Jason, do you know where some of these species, like, are you privy to any information as to where these species are actually coming from? These beings are coming from in terms of systems.
Yes, at least the gentleman in the desert, he actually, along with that, the description of the park he wanted, there was also a flash of memory. I don't know where it comes from, but there was a star map in my head. And when I got interviewed by David Grush, you guys all know who he is, right?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, he interviewed me, and he's good with stars, I guess. He was able to locate where the system was. He said this looks very close to the constellation Leo, and the red star seems to be where I have a feeling this is where this being came from, or this is what he considers his home world, is this red star. There's some exoplanets around it that they colonized, and I guess David Grush again confirmed. He said, yeah, it's strange you mentioned that he came from a planet near the red star, because we just recently found these exoplanets around that red star, and we didn't even know about this, 5-10 years ago. So I was like, oh, interesting. So here it is. I've got a star map. I've never known about stars, and all of a sudden I know about this red star having exoplanets, so I can't explain that either.
And when you say colonized, did they come there? Did they emigrate there from another system, or was that just?
No, Um, it kind of makes me sad because I did share with him, the gentleman in the desert, at some point, whenever that star map gets brought up, I feel a great deal of sadness that something horrible happened to his actual original world that he was living on. That when that star expanded, his planet pretty much died. And either you got off the planet before it happened, or you stayed behind because that was your home world and you just wanted to die there. That's kind of what happened to him. But they part of his race went to a neighboring planet that they could inhabit, and that's where he came from.
Okay. And were there any other details as to where other beings were coming from? I know that you mentioned Zeta Reticuli. Was that just off the cuff, or was that?
Well, that was Regulus, I think is the name of the star.
Regulus. Okay.
Yes, but yeah, I would say that
Well,
that's
that links
the only
to Chris
one that
Bledsoe. Chris Bledsoe says that
yeah.
Star of Regulus.
Exactly. Yeah, there's
That's
something
eight.
with the Star of Regulus, Bledsoe.
Oh, Bledsoe said that too?
He said that there's going to be something happen Easter 2026 when the Star of Regulus is somewhere over the pyramids, and he thinks it could be the second coming. That was what he said. So I don't know. Have you not heard about that?
He's claiming that Jesus Christ will return on Easter next year when Regulus is aligned with the Egyptian Sphinx and things. Okay, yeah.
That was on Sean Ryan.
Yeah, you're right. That was.
You also mentioned that the Ebens race are on the way back, and that they're going to be here between about 2030, give or take a few years. This is just a pure speculation question, but the James Webb Telescope was apparently picking something just over a year ago, heading towards Earth. Just out of your sort of, do you think that could be what is heading towards Earth? Has anybody said to you that this is heading towards Earth? Is pretty much what I'm trying to ask.
It's possible. I know that this next meeting is going to be a bigger meeting than was it Holloman Air Force Base, because one that occurred at Holloman, what was that, back in the
1954?
54. This one, well, honestly, I had fun with my friends on this one, my intelligence community people, my friends that I have, and we had discussed, well, how long would it take at the speed of light for, or something close to the speed of light, being that large, getting through this, from that location to Earth. And actually the timeline kind of lines up. They calculated that craft, if that's what this telescope had actually detected, would be here in like 2034 or thereabouts.
Which is the end of this slow disclosure plan, 2034.
Right. So, exactly. So there's this window of time, between the 2025 and 2045, there's, again, within that window of time, something that might occur. And we're starting to see things with our telescopes now. What did it say, that object changed directions twice now?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And each time it was, directly towards our solar system. So I find that kind of unique, but we'll see. I've not heard much since. I know that our Congress, I'm not sure if you guys over in UK or in Europe had that same level of interest from your government, but they immediately wanted a briefing about that.
But culturally, our country is about 20, 30 years behind you guys in terms of progress right now on this topic. They've got no interest in sharing anything.
Yeah. Wow.
I think the Phoenix Lights incident and how America dealt with that's the UK at present.
Right.
Yeah.
We're not waking them up, though. Slowly.
I think, Jason, just out of curiosity, within the IC, though, do you know if there's any discussions about that course-correcting object, or is it just purely based on speculation?
Yes, they had talked about it, and yes, they confirmed that, yes, something had been seen. However, I think there had been a debate where people were saying it's a natural thing, and maybe it's not a natural thing. So there was arguments on both sides. So I think that's what they presented to Congress over here in the United States was both sides of the issue. In other words, the pros and the cons of whether or not this was a real object or whether it was, piloted vehicle of some kind.
Do you know if that was done in a skiff or is it done in a public setting?
It was classified. It was a closed session, so nobody knows what they said to them.
Right.
Do you think this timeline, Jason, of something possibly arriving around the 2030 sort of mark,
Yeah.
is it the reason we're seeing loads of extra UAP phenomena that the US government has kind of stated is largely their own and basically being used for training purposes? But, what do you think the connection is with the
Well, it's everything I said before. It's playing a part in this. Number one, every time they were mentioned when I was on the program of being in a lab, whether it's tall whites or grays, it was not a kumbaya thing. They didn't even want the humans inside the lab at the time. So it was highly managed, highly controlled by the aliens themselves, by the NHI. So if that's true, and this is my analytical logic that's working, is that this has never been a completely friendly thing that's been going on between them. So I think what's happening is the program folks are realizing that the NHI are making their own decisions about this. I think the NHI are stepping up their game as well because if you think about it from an NHI standpoint, what makes sense to me is they want to retrieve their vehicles and their biologics, and if there's any living survivors, they want them back. So that's a high concern. If you ever got into any kind of a military action or whatever you want to talk about, even if we were doing this like in Russia, like say we had a downed aircrew, it's a very touchy thing to have to do politically because you're going into another person's country and you're doing an extraction of your own, personnel and things. And we've encountered that a few times. So you can imagine that that's going to be high on their list of things to take care of is get their people back first, And then I think maybe there's some discussion that we could have amongst ourselves as to, well, what would be the outcome if they got everything back and it comes out that they're not at war with all of us and that they are completely focused on these program people that have stolen their stuff and not told the American public or the UK public or any other public nation about what they did. Yeah, there's going to be maybe a chance that these NHI will go one way or the other. They'll either say, yes, we're here, but we don't want to interface with you. Or they say, yes, we're here and we're going to try to help you. I think those are two things that would happen. I don't think the third option that some people have said that there's nothing but a threat, everybody needs to be killed, you're an NHI, you're a threat. I think that's bullshit.
Yeah, I'd kind of agree because I think their intelligence is next level to us. So they've got other options. I don't think they think in the same capacity, if you know what I mean. You kind of referenced that earlier, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah, spot on.
Yeah, you're right.
Is this UAP phenomena then basically them watching us watching them? But
yes.
See, when I'm kind of like thinking about it in that capacity, I mean, especially with the increased phenomena that we've actually seen in our country here in England, is it telling that potentially there's artifacts and specimens potentially here in the UK?
I would say, yeah, potentially, yeah, because I do know that the types of laboratories you would need are one-off, very unique to test these sorts of plasmas, energies, the biologics even would have to go to certain laboratory environments that are scattered all over the world. So there's probably a little bit of it going on in Australia. There's probably some there in the UK, some around Europe, because we've had a flap in Belgium of all these triangular craft. So yeah, we've probably been testing a lot of stuff everywhere. and even here in America, they were shipping stuff around all the time because certain labs had to be built even to do unique things. So these are like one-off labs that you can't just have 100,000 of these available. So that's one of the things that would help to unravel um, some of the thought pieces that people should be having as they mature into reading up on UAPs. Is that if you can get beyond just the shiny objects and talking about little green men, you got to realize that these people from other worlds have their own manufacturing. They've got that, therefore they have their own economies. They've got their own form of government. Likewise, if they're aware of other beings in the universe and galaxy, they're going to have relationships with them if they're advanced enough. And I think they're looking at us as if, well, these people are coming quite along now. They've got quite a lot of technology, but they suck at the spiritual side of things. But we're willing to work with them, I think is what their idea is. But who knows, they've dealt with other people that are a lot worse.
So you think that's like a, sorry.
After your question, Dan, we've got 20 minutes left as Jason's only got an hour and a half. I'm going to drop some of you guys so others can come up and ask the questions as well. So after Dan's question, I'll bring other people up if you guys are happy.
Yeah, sure. So Jason, just on that, just quickly. So you think that there's like we're hypothesizing here, but like you think that there's an order of things in the way that this works, where a more civilized or more advanced civilization meets one that's on the cusp of becoming sort of interstellar, effectively.
Yes, and I definitely, I would say I definitely felt the difference between the beings I met in my childhood and the guy in the desert. The beings that looked like Nordics to me, they were very angelic feeling. A lot of love was emanating from them, and they seemed to be of a higher intelligence as well. So yes, I think there is a hierarchical type of order in the universe that goes right up to the one creative one, the one that's the ultimate intelligence as well. But we have everything in between along with that. And I think that's the way I feel. You don't have to agree with me, but it just makes more sense. I mean, we're looking at a universe right now where even our own astrologists are starting to be confused because we get the James Webb Telescope looking further than we ever have before into the universe, and they're thinking these blobby-looking galaxies that they saw with the crappier telescopes before James Webb came along. They take a picture of the same galaxy, and it's fully formed, and matter of fact, even better organized than the galaxies we're near. And that totally surprised them. They're like, holy crap, we were expecting that to be like an infant galaxy, and here it is fully formed.
Yeah.
And so I think what we're looking at here is that if there's a pattern of life here on Earth and this biodiversity is just brimming over, I mean, literally here on this planet, I'd say that the same conditions could be elsewhere in this universe in the trillions, honestly, because you're looking at just the millions and millions of stars in our galaxy. There's galaxies way bigger than ours that have more stars than that. And then you cast those out into the trillions that we can see just with our telescopes, knowing that there's probably trillions and trillions more that we don't see.
Yeah.
I think it's quite insane for anybody to sit here on the crust of our planet and only have maybe been in an airplane that's gotten them past the cloud cover and gone, well, I think I know it exactly. We're freaking alone. I know everything about the universe. We have to be alone. Screw that. I think that's probably somebody who needs to go back and do a reassessment, because the more and more we find out, the more and more we're kind of convincing ourselves that no, we're probably not alone.
No. And what do you think? Sorry, I'll leave it with this. But what do you think that we need to do collectively as people that are, we've got our followings, we've got people that want to know more about this stuff. What do you think we need to be doing moving forwards to sort of get people on the same page effectively?
I've had a lot of those discussions in the podcast, but yes, I think a lot of the agreement that I have with Chris Bledsoe is the same thing I would tell you. They want us to stop hurting each other. They want us to be concerned about people who are homeless, without food, fatherless, all these things that we should be more concerned about than getting on our video games and on our cell phones. And I think that's where we get it backwards. We're all out after, getting the newest cell phone rather than spending quality time with our own children. That's the problem. And that's the basic problem with us. And that's why we need to kind of step up our game. And that's, again, goes back to why I feel like that guy left me with a legacy that I met in the desert, because that's a part of who I am. I try to, every day of my life, I know that I'm one of the most intelligent beings that are here on planet Earth. We have the gift of communication, of talking to each other. I can say something to any one of you that impacts your life for the rest of your life and turns you into a better person. And likewise, you could do the same to me, And that's really the beauty of who we are. And I think that's why the NHI in so many cases has said, you don't know your potential. And I think that there's also telepathically that group telepathy I mentioned. I think that's what's missing in us is we don't have that togetherness that we should have. I mean, everybody wants to be a good person, but acting on it, we get scared about it, or we don't want to say it because we feel awkward or we think somebody's going to take it wrong. But the way I go about it, I'm just like, screw it. I'm going to make somebody smile today. I don't care if I tell them I'm going to pray for them. That's my greatest expression of care for them because I'm a faithful person. It'd be just the same as somebody who's not got faith in their life, giving them a card saying, have a great day. Why can't we get along like that? That's the problem. We tend to just get hung up on all this silliness. And I think that's
more empathy, less hate.
Yeah.
Right.
Jason, more empathy, less hate. But just to stop you just one second, I want to say thank you so much for answering my questions. I'm going to drop down to give some people in the feed an opportunity maybe to ask you better questions, who knows. But dude, I can't thank you enough. You've kind of made my millennium. So brother, while you're out there doing what you're doing, stay safe, be brilliant, and just know over here in Britain we love you. Cheers, dude.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, buddy.
Here's UFO.
Bring someone else up. If anyone else has a question,
Sam, I'm dropping too.
All right. Cheers, mate. Have a good one. Right, I'll bring 2 more people up. If you guys ask questions, if you want, I'll bring people up.
Jason, I have a quick question, and this is almost, I mean, this might come out as devil's advocate in a way, but it's not meant to. But so in a big picture kind of view, and by the way, I fully agree with exactly what you just said about, more empathy and the need for that for our species as a whole, humanity, everything. But it also makes me wonder, and I don't know if you got any sense of this through any of the communications, but why would they care? It's kind of, there are, when you look at, I don't know, when you look at the total number of humans, what percentage really care about how ants are doing? Probably not very many.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes me wonder, why would they care? Which I hope they do, of course, but why would they? And I didn't know did you get any sense of that from any of the communication?
Yeah, I kind of did. And again, it goes back to the fact that, yes, they're very loving. They care. They're very civilized. I think they care more about our planet than we do in a lot of cases. And I think that's the fallacy of logic that we go through is I think we don't realize just how screwed up we can be, to outsiders, to people like this person I met in the desert. Because, even if one of us really learns to live a really good life and is a very great person, we may not have the right motivation even, at heart. But
Jason?
You got to put it all together that way. Hello. Hi.
Hi. I have a question if I may ask.
Sure.
So first I want to say that I think you're really amazing and you're very brave. And then I was just wondering, do you think that they may protect us from nuclear war?
Yes, that's why I think they did what they did back in the 1960s, where they shut down the nuclear warheads and stuff. And then in Russia, they actually turned them on. I think that was a show of force to tell us, you want to play with this stuff? Well, let's scare the hell out of you and make you realize how stupid these really are. I think that's what they were trying to prove to us. And now they show up with our nuclear carrier groups. They show up with nuclear subs. Both the United Kingdom has had them show up. The Russians have had them show up. So yeah, they are very concerned about nukes. And on top of that, I'd say they even seem to be concerned about what happened in Japan with the meltdown there. There's a lot of reports of orbs showing up during that event.
So, can I ask you another thing?
Sure.
If that could be one question per person, so everyone
Oh,
can.
sorry.
So after you've asked, I'm gonna drop you down and then bring the next person up. So Angela, if you want to ask the next question, then we'll go to DJ Ron.
Sure. Jason, I know it's your story, and I'm so glad to see you over here. I'm really glad to see such, support going through you because you really genuinely do it, and you're a huge advocate.
Angela, you are always there for me, man.
I told you, I got your 6.
I know you do.
I don't care what backlash. We'll go through it. But my question to you would be more for like the community. What can we do collectively, you see, to make progress, especially when we see the kind of the C-word mentalities that happen on apps like this when it comes to certain topics.
I'll get rid of that guy.
No, I actually, we've talked about it before. I think in some of our pod spaces. But yeah, I think generally, if you're hosting a space on TikTok, X, what have you, just refuse to let people to get rude, because like I've said before, the one thing that really gets a whistleblower like myself upset to want to come forward, that kind of adversarialism and rudeness is really something that people don't like to deal with.
Yeah, that's why I DM'd you from the jump, and trying to warn you in some of those spaces, even though it's important to go into them, there's some psyops going on at the same time. So as long as you can be aware and kind of recognize it, maybe we can get through it faster.
So that's one thing. If you're a host, you should be respectful. And if you're asking, a speaker such as myself a question, I don't care if you disagree with me. I'm not going to get rude with you. Please don't get rude with me. So it's an etiquette thing. The other thing we could do is we're all capable of voting people in and out of government spaces. You just saw how it changed the landscape here in America. So the same thing can happen in Europe, same thing can happen in the UK. And so if you choose the right people that advocate for disclosure, then that's what we need to be doing. And that will help out because, the one thing that's going to really kick the people in the pants here in America is, oh, by golly, if one of the other countries starts to get to the punch first and says, yeah, we've got retrieved craft and here's one, by the way, we're rolling it out now. America is going to really quickly go, oh, shoot, dang it, we missed that one. They'll probably come right out with it,
Have you been asked to testify?
Right, so it might push disclosure quicker, yeah.
Here, I'm going to drop out so others can have a chance. Jason, it was a pleasure talking to you, and thanks again for your service and everything you're doing.
Yes, thank you very much for your time and your questions as well.
The next question for Brown Paranormal.
Hi, Jason. Thank you for joining.
Oh, sorry, he's going to ask first, DJ, then it'll be you.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, hi, Jason. Good to speak to you. It's been fantastic tonight. I just want to ask a question of you personally. How are you sort of holding up to all of this attention, because it is massive around the world and you're a human being like the rest of us. So I think that can easily be, overlooked.
I have to say, since the Joe Rogan show, my life has changed quite a bit. It went from just chatting with friends to every day. If I don't physically put my phone down, I could literally be answering messages all day, and people asking for interviews. That's a constant thing. It's like I'm practically booked between now and next month for interviews. So yeah, it got.
Yeah, the reason I say that is, I have a concern. I'm sure everybody else does here. For you as a person, and that you need to take time to kind of step outside of what's going to become a
don't worry about
disaster for
that.
you?
I've always been very good about that. If I feel like I need a break, usually I just make an announcement to all my followers, and I'll say, hey, I'm just going to, everything's fine. I'm just going to be quiet for a bit. I'm a bit too busy or whatever. But yeah, it's been tough in other ways as well. I lost a job. I still don't have my clearance back. However, I do have employers that are helping me with that, trying to get me reemployed and reinvigorate my clearance. But so far, it's been unsuccessful. I'm still doing okay. I'm kind of scraping by financially. So those are things that, again, it's typical of whistleblowers. You hear how it kind of changes their life, and why would anybody be crazy enough to cause this level of damage to their own life, that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm going through that now.
Okay, that's good to hear that you know how to come out of it. So thank you very much. I'll drop down now.
Yep.
Monty, then Kaz, and then we'll see how much time we have. If
Okay.
just
all right. So I just wanted to know if all of humanity, like as a whole, knew everything that you knew, how do you think we would take it?
I think I would say that everybody would be a little bit more attentive to themselves before they speak out. I think that's the underlying thing, and from that will sprout a lot of good things. I think when people do that inner check before they speak, I think that's one of the things that I find most powerful about humans, is our words actually impact other people's lives for both good and bad. And I don't think we give enough credit to that. So yes, I think that if everybody else in the world had my experience, I think that's something they would definitely feel a compunction about, and would probably change their life, because they would feel the same way I do, that crap, I am not alone. There's people watching us, and they don't like the way I act. They don't like the way I talk. They don't even like the form of government that governs my land. They think of them as charlatans. There's all these things that pop into my head nowadays, and I'm just like, wow, we've got some work to do here, guys. It's not impossible though. It's just going to take time, and we have to be just as determined to change our path as any other decision in life. If you're going to be successful, we have to be successful in this, decide to be successful in this. It's a choice that we make every day.
Right, thank you for that question, Monty. Kaz, go on, ask the question.
Good question, by the way, Monty. I like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Jason. I just want to say thank you so much for joining everybody tonight, and I apologise for being late to the party. I've not been well today. I didn't think I was going to make it at all, but thank you so much for your story. And I wanted to ask, do you know about the ultra-terrestrials that are here? Have you had contact with them? Or do you know someone or is associated with someone that has?
Yes, to both of those, yes. The ones that have interacted with me, it's like just last week, for instance, I had a gentleman who was coming out to meet me. He was at the airport, and he had an elderly gentleman actually pull him aside and looked at him straight in the face and said, "Tell Jay I said hello to him." And he's like, "Hello, do I know you?" He's like, "No, but just tell Jay I said hi." And he's like thinking to himself, "How could he possibly know I'm going to go see Jason?" So it's either some CIA agent or it's some extraterrestrial that's doing that. That happens to me all the time. I call it the invisible hand. They seem to follow me around, and there's like nothing for me to do for like a month, and the next thing I'm very busy, and there's all these open doors that I now have to help people talk to Congress or do something to help try to help. So yeah, it's kind of funny that way.
Right, thank you for your question, Kaz. Ellie, you're next. Guys, I won't be bringing more people on now because Jason did say hour and a half. We're going to go just over that. So I apologize if I missed it.
No, you're good. We can do a few more.
I'll drop down. Thank you, Jason, for answering my question.
Yeah.
I'd
No
just like to
problem.
say, first of all, thank you for your service.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
I think that my question to you would be, whenever you had the connection with the being,
Mhm.
and the other two were asleep, or they were put to sleep, I guess. Is that right?
Was it what? I couldn't hear that.
The other two that you were with, they passed out. They were passed out.
Oh yeah, they were entranced, is what I would call it. Yeah.
Would you say that being probably could assert that you were like more authority figure?
Yeah, I think he was responsible if they were in a trance, and I think he did it because at least I know the young lady that was sitting next to me, she probably would have opened the door and ran out into that, the cold desert and would have died of hypothermia herself and harmed herself. So there are that might have been his concern, and instead of just shutting her down and entrancing her, he did it to the whole car, so that perhaps maybe the driver wouldn't run him over when he got scared and other stuff. So it may have been a little bit of him wanting to survive the experience himself. So yeah, they were entranced, and I think he did it to protect them.
That was my main question to you. I think you're a brave person to come and speak even at the cost of your career. I think it was great things coming to you in the long run, and thank you. That's what I'd like to say.
Well, thank you very much. That was very kind of you. And a good
Danny, your question, and we'll have one more, and then we'll see from there. Just quick one. Jason, you're on 1,000 followers now. Would it let you show your face on camera?
Oh, I can.
Yeah.
Not like you guys want to see this. Okay, everybody, shut your eyes. All right, let me see if I can do this.
If it works.
No, it's still.
It's fine. No worries. Right.
Yeah, I guess we started the space before I went to 1,000.
Yeah. Go on, Danny. Your question, then we'll have two more from.
I was unmuting and everything got messed up. What's up, boys? How you doing?
What's up, dude?
What's up, Knightley and UFO and Dan and UFO and Planty, and I guess we got Global. Hey, everybody. I don't know if Jason.
What's up, man?
What's up, Jason?
Community we've got. That's all I can say. What a community we've got.
Yeah, I'm so happy to see everybody. Jason, so I got some questions, but I'm limited to one. So I'm gonna don't worry, I'll track you down. I'm good at that. They can all tell you that. I'll annoy the hell out of you. Don't worry. But I go back and forth with disclosure and all this other stuff. What do you make of when you hear about all the disclosure going on in the United States with Luna and stuff like that, talking about whether it's JFK, RFK, MLK, all the Ks, right? Yeah. All those people and everything like that. Is that all a distraction from everything else? Or do you see that as a distraction of things that we need to know? Or is there another piece of disclosure that you think is more important than something else that we've already known about, whether that's UFOs or something else that we're not knowing based upon what they're telling us? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, that makes sense. Now I got to kind of put on a little bit of a politician's hat to answer that. So politicians want to get reelected. You're talking about disclosure for all the Ks and UAP. All of these have been traditionally very hard for anybody to come clean on. Mainly because it really drives deep into our government and how corrupt it is, and how horrible decisions are made. And that's kind of what is probably driving people to keep their mouths shut. And I think this administration, at least, is open to cracking open the files, declassifying things. But I think they're also getting a lot of people that are trying to hide stuff from them because they know they're coming to knock on their door. And I'm hoping that Luna and her team and everybody else, and all of our new directors that are out there in all the agencies, interagencies, I hope that they all keep their heads on straight and that they stay and remain motivated to do exactly what they said they're going to do. That's the only way we're going to get through this and get to the truth. There can't be any half-truths. I mean, I hate to say it, but if President Trump is on the Epstein list, then he's going to have to answer for that. You know, maybe he has to go to jail after his presidency. But that was his decision when he made that, and that's what happened. Again, if he's not on the list, then yeah, I'm sure he's doing the right thing, like what he's doing now. He's trying to get everybody in the right spot to, declassify all of this. So that's something also, though. But UAP is kind of a global event, and this is why it's important that I'm talking to you guys, and I'll be talking to another talk show in a week, I think. And it's in France, I think, or Italy. So I want to reach out to the international community because this is a global issue too, because you guys have to be thinking about this, just like we did here in America. You wouldn't have, if we hadn't voted in the people that we have this time around, we wouldn't even be talking about this kind of disclosure over this past month. Just think about that.
Yeah,
but
thank you for the question, Danny.
But also think about it. Think about the American people and how they're the ones who made this change.
Yeah.
You see? That's what the key to this is. That's the key to disclosure. So I don't care what Lou says or what he gets bagged on or what any of the other big talking heads in the UAP community say. They don't get to be disclosure for any of this. At the end of the day, if these are other beings from other planets, guess who has the last say? The beings on other planets. So it's kind of silly right now for us to think that we even really have control over it.
All right, thank you for your question, Danny. Global
Later,
UAP.
boys.
Yeah, guys, I'm at work, so I got to be quick. I've been waiting patiently. First, Jason, dude, thank you so much, man.
Yep.
You are freaking awesome for doing this, and I think I speak on behalf of everyone.
Yep.
Thank you, and please just keep the courage and keep going. We all depend on you, man, so thank you very much. And again, thank you for your service as well, brother. So I'll be super quick, man. I'm a man of action, and I'm all about solutions at the end of the day. If you look at my name, it says globaluaptaskforce.org.
Yep.
And essentially it's a global movement that I've been trying to put together for some type of solution, because I just got to the point where I'm sick and tired of just waiting and depending on the government forever for answers and being stuck in this perpetual waiting game. What do you think are some positive solutions that we as a global community can do in order to push disclosure at a global scale and not just at a private level for private companies?
All right, I'm going to give you an eye-opener or answer to that. What the program people are doing, we can do on our own. All we're getting our government.
That's what I'm saying.
Yep. Because guess what? When that UAP fell down in Las Vegas in that guy's backyard, if he knew what to do, he could have made first contact.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
That's how quickly it happens. And everything else would have fallen out differently at that point. That's how much we have to be ready for this. So it has to do with awareness as well. I mean, if we're a pretty big community. I think there's over 70 or 80% of people believe that we're not alone. If we just made ourselves smart on how to respond or even have our cell phones already hooked up and ready, we'd be getting a lot more data. We have scientists of our own. We have field, people that love going out in the field and investigating all on our own. We could outpace all of this, and we don't need to ask our government to say, what are we asking our government for anyway? Did you lie to me? I think that's really what we're asking for. Did you freaking lie to me? Because we know we're not going to get anything else. Just admit that you lied. Okay, I lied. But you're still not going to see. I think that's what the answer is going to be. You're still not going to see anything. Yeah, we lied to you. Sorry.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. I do got to pop down. Thank you so much, man. And if you haven't, Jason, please go check out my website. It's called globaluaptaskforce.org, and just get back to me with what you think. It's a beautiful movement, and I got everyone here in the chat and the panel to thank for it. You guys are absolutely beautiful people, and I think together we're going to get disclosure ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. I think so too. It's for the people, by the people.
One more question.
Absolutely.
Planty, you got anything? And we'll close off.
Yes. So, first of all, Jason and Shiv, thank you both, gentlemen. Now, for Jason, is there anything that we need to be concerned about if, hypothetically, we ran into an orb and it wanted to make friends with us? Do we need to be concerned about radiation, or is there any concern that we need to have?
No, most of these craft are operated with consciousness. When it feels that there's a living being nearby, it will not emanate in that direction. I think Jake could tell you that, other than his Octagon craft, which may have been malfunctioning, and he said he got sick from that. So, yeah, maybe again, awareness-wise, if I think the orbs though, and the egg-shaped ones, I think those ones are pretty much benign. Honestly, you can connect with them without touching them anyway. Apparently, that's the way the psionics teams work, and that's the way you can work. I mean, you just have to be open-minded. I think the greatest feeling you get is what the craft will respond to, because that's the way the psionics do. They meditate on reaching out in a kind and loving way, and they respond to that. And that's kind of what they're looking for, because, I mean, it's the same thing, you know, when you're trying to even get a dog that's a stray to come to you, you have to portray a friendly demeanor. I think that's the biggest thing you could do if you encounter something like that. And, but the radiation, yeah, I'd say that radiation is kind of dangerous. So maybe, you know, I don't know how much a Geiger counter costs or something that can detect that, but that'd be kind of good if everybody had that in their toolbox, that, oh, okay, yeah, just put on the lapel and see if I'm being irradiated.
Yeah, we have, there's free apps. So I actually have one on my phone, but I just want to be safe.
And oh, by the way, your cell phone is actually irradiating you too.
Oh, yes. Yes, it's true. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. I'll drop you.
Okay, you're welcome.
I had a huge experience in 2016. I probably witnessed the largest UFO event in the UK regarding a huge pyramid-shaped craft that jettisoned smaller craft.
You were one of the ones that saw that.
Yes.
Wow.
Do you know about that incident?
Yeah, that was the one that flew over, and it kind of it came up over a farmer's field.
Yeah.
Kind of rotated, and then it took off.
Well, I had two of those smaller objects approach me.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah. That's what my profile picture is.
Okay.
You know, one came within 20 feet of me and the other less than 10 feet of me, but they came to me.
Did you feel anything consciously?
Oh, yeah. It was the hardest thing for me to prove, because I couldn't prove how it made me feel when I took my polygraph examinations, because it was a feeling. But it was an overwhelming feeling of love, almost as if I've been touched by the hand of God.
Yes, that's what it feels like. Yeah.
But there was also a sense of fear. These things were afraid, because our military had set an ambush for it.
Yes.
You know anybody that was involved in that incident on the military side?
Yeah, I sometimes feel that during those experiences that people have, that the ones that are a horror show are sometimes attributed to the fact that the NHI are afraid as well. And since they're telepathic, it's projecting into the humans. Then the humans get scared, and then they get scared again, and it turns into a full-blown horror show after that.
Oh, it was totally unjust.
Yeah, so I'm glad that you had a very good experience, because that's what I've had. I've never had a bad experience, except bad dreams of reptilians being in my room, and who knows, maybe they were really there. I don't know.
The only downside to that was that I nearly died from the extremely high EMF and radiation that came from those craft.
Yeah.
Live restricted for some audience. Your live contains themes that may be find uncomfortable, and alcohol, drugs, tobacco.
Don't using the D word, guys. Don't use the D word on here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, they're very strict on that.
But
Right,
Jason,
guys.
I would really like you to contact me so that we could have a deeper conversation. If
Certainly,
you
yep. Yep, now that I'm up on TikTok, I think we
yeah.
can do that if you want
Yeah,
to.
if I can send you my email via TikTok and then maybe my telephone number via my email, and then we
Okay.
can have a
And
chat.
if you want it to be secure, I use Proton Mail as well. I'll give you that.
Okay. Thanks, Jason.
Yeah.
Thank
Oh,
you,
and by
guys.
the way, if anybody's trying to contact me, I'm easily available on X. Of course, that's my largest following right now. TikTok is surely coming up quickly on that. So I guess X and TikTok, it's just my first name, middle initial, last name. Usually you'll find me. And you can DM me, and then I can exchange emails with you, and we can talk on secure apps and things like this if you have,
Yeah,
have
there's
something you want
certain
to
things
say.
that I would really like to discuss with you privately.
All right,
Okay.
Jason,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I know you've stayed 15 minutes over. Just a quick one, guys. Any closing remarks? For
I have
Jason
one.
before
I
I
have,
close out, please?
I have one question.
Go
So
on.
you spoke about the reptilian thing before. I just needed to ask this question. Jake Barber mentioned in his Jesse Michaels interview that these children from Indonesia, where you seen the triangular craft,
Yes.
and he thought that
did discuss
they
that.
were moving people across. And he says that these children are looked after, they're cared for,
Yes.
and they're put in fight or flight mode, which is to get this bionic ability potentially out of them.
Right. And that's what he described to me as well when
Yeah. What's interesting is this is just a bit of conspiracy, and I think you alluded to it before. When you look at the A word, I don't want to say it because you might get bin bagged off the app. With the blood, they put them in the same mode, fight or flight mode, which gets it out of it gets it running through their body. I just found that was interesting, and that was some sort of connection. Is there a connection to that?
Yes, I believe so. And it's also in a lot of the biblical and even a lot of the cultures of ancient times that human blood, is where the life force is kept. And it's always been sacrificially given to the gods, it seems. So I would say that if the gods of old are the aliens of new, then yes, blood is a valuable asset to have.
Just a little follow up. Where are these children?
Well, according to what Jake is saying, is they took them on board because they're already in a really bad state. They're probably going to die or have a worse life, but they're just happily working for the program people, being janitors and cooks and cleaning ladies, and that's kind of what they do with them. So
Do you think it just stops there? Do you think there's something a bit more sinister that's potentially going on?
I didn't detect there being anything more sinister. I think that he was being honest with me that, yeah, that's what's going on, is that they are just employed for their life, and they're allowed to be with their family if they have a family, and so on and so forth. But I do think that there is some risk to that type of life that maybe he didn't tell me about. But I don't know what those risks might be. But that's what he described to me, and yeah.
I just found that interesting when he said that on Jesse Michaels. Straight away I went to something that I'd researched a long time ago, thinking they said exactly the same thing about the blood, and he's saying now it's connected to psionics. So I thought,
yeah,
is the
because
blood
Jake,
stuff a lie, or is it connected?
well, it's connected, but Jake and I had that discussion across the table when I met him. I gave him the same thing that, when you guys asked me about my motivation for coming forward, I mentioned the triangle in Indonesia, and that's when he responded that, yes, perhaps these are the people being onboarded, and they have a really bad life to begin with, but we're giving them a better life, a place to live, a place to be employed, to be with their family and be safe.
Interesting.
So,
Well, thanks,
take that as you will. So I don't know.
No, thank you for answering that.
Listen, thank you. It'll be one last question. If Dre has any questions, or for that theory, we'll close it down.
Oh no, I'm sorry. No, I just wanted to. I just got off of work just now, and I caught the very end of it. But just thank you, Jason. Thank you for everything you've done. I'm speaking on behalf of everybody. We all appreciate everything that you put into this.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a lot of sacrifice, but there's been a lot of positive too. And I have to say that's another big thing for me is I wanted to quit several times, but there's always been folks like you guys who've been supportive and positive that have kept me in the fight.
That's the most gifts I've ever seen someone get talking about UFOs. So you've done well there, Jason.
Yeah, and I think that's just because I reached out to you guys before I went on News Nation, to tell you the
No,
truth.
we've been watching you for a long time, Jason. You're just not aware.
Yeah, I didn't know. Honestly, you guys are the first batch of the motherland, so to speak, that have talked to me, and it's good. It's good to know that you guys are aware, that you guys are on target, you guys are wanting the same answers. And it's going to be up to you, though, to do the same thing that we've done in America to get the right people into office to get your disclosure.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, can I just add? Sorry, if I can just ask a question. Sorry, just before. So I remember, obviously, there's a lot of discussion over counterintelligence operations and stuff within certain UAP communities. Jason, are you aware of anything going on within social media where these guys are pushing narratives on TikTok, Instagram, etc.?
When I was doing cyber operations planning, yeah, that's exactly what we do. Yeah, that's how you run a deception plan. That's how you run a military op. Yeah, you try to take care of things the way you think it is. There's been a cover story for this program for decades, if not a century now, or almost a century. That yeah, they're stuck in their ways. I'm sure there's a lot of them trying to debunk us. Yes.
And how would they do that? For example, like because Matt and I at least have had some very weird things happening on our accounts over the past year of talking about this. Are there ways of them shutting people down or like sort of interfering with videos or things like that? Do you know of anything of that? Is that?
Oh yeah. There's ways to do that, and I'm sure that sometimes they do. However, I know that at least from my cyber planning experience, that is something you have to have a lot of authority and legal means to do. To shut down a space is not an easy thing. Now, I would say hackers, they don't care about the rules. They would be more likely to do it as well. So it'd be easier.
Entire data blocks from myself and other witnesses from the 1st of December 2015 until the 1st of March 2016 from multiple witnesses that took photographs and video and had audio messages from their computers and their phones.
That'd be excellent. I'd love to see all that.
Yeah, me too.
Would you mind if I shared it with James Fox, the movie director?
Look,
let me look at them. We'll have our private chat, and you can decide later. How's that?
Okay.
All right. Jason, would you be? If you need to go, you can go. We're more than happy for you to stay. We can. I'm sure everyone else in the panel is happy, but I know you've run over 20 minutes, and I don't want you to feel forced to stay. If you need to go, you can go. Entirely up to you, mate. If you're busy.
I came very late to the party. I'm so sorry.
Let's go to the top of the hour then.
All right.
Your followers have gone up nearly 200 since being on the live, so it's
yeah, I just saw the followers, and I was like, okay, not the followers, but how many people are actually in attendance.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, yeah, let's go to the top of the hour because I don't want to cut it too short when, maybe some people are just finding out that the show is active and live.
Yeah, well, the UAP community is definitely getting a little bit suppressed in terms of the stuff we're covering, so we don't get notifications pushed out the way we used to.
I've been shadow banned for 9 years, Daniel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it happens.
Any more questions for Jason, guys?
Oh, I could sit and talk to Jason all night, but I'm sure there are other people that have questions.
Oh, you said something about Lou before. I don't know if it was. Have you got a bit of a beef with Lou? Does Lou not agree with what you're saying or something? I've missed that.
No. I love the guy. He's my hero, man. We don't agree on everything. I mean, that goes with anybody. We've all got different experiences. It's just like me and Chris Bledsoe. Yeah, we're both faithful people.
And what do you think of Greer?
Greer, he's always treated me with respect. He does, have a lot of knowledge, and he tends to, he jumped on my case for mentioning the reptilians because I know he's pretty big on that. All of this is very benevolent and kind and good, and here I was mentioning that the reptilians might be a violent race. So, in my experience, I don't have to agree with him wholeheartedly. I talked to him about this before, and I think where concession was that, or when I conceded that, yes, for the most part, the good people are obviously in control, otherwise we'd all be dead. And I agree with that. And we left it at that. Okay. And, you know, I cannot, with what I know, say that they're all good, because I know that I've felt some of the bad, you know, and I know that it exists. So that's just for me. Dr. Greer can have his own take on it, all he likes, and same thing with Lou. So, yeah, there's little things like that we disagree on. It's just like, you know, Chris Bledsoe, I agree with most of what he says. There's a few things that I don't, but they're mainly doctrinal, religion type things. So I don't let the small crap get in the way, I guess.
Jason, do you know anything about Rh negative blood and where that came from?
I was literally just going to say that. How mad's that?
Yeah, they think that was reptilian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know much about that. I'm not a biologist, but I've read up on some of that, and I find it intriguing, and I'll tell you that. Because, yeah, if you look at the Bible, it seems like Noah was chosen because of who he was, and maybe even genetically who he was as well, and his family line. You know, it could have been the fact that, you know, there's something there in that bloodline that needed to survive. And
Gilgamesh.
yeah, so there's all those things that run through my mind, but that's just my opinion. I'm not stating it as fact, but that is my opinion. And yes, I believe that we don't know enough about DNA and RNA, as well as this Rh blood type as well. You know, what produces it. I do like where science is going. They're finally figuring out that RNA and DNA is, in fact, information.
Yeah.
And that's something I think that really popped my eyeballs. Was I was like, geez, you know, if that's true, then holy crap, you know, what else haven't we? What else does it do? You know, what is this junk DNA? Is this real stuff that if we turn it on, we actually get telepathy or some other special power? I don't know.
A question as well. How would they secure that? That would be a huge national security risk.
Yeah, it would be.
On this planet.
Yeah, if you could CRISPR our RNA and DNA like they are now, yeah, there's probably been a lot of people doing stuff like that. And, you know, some countries just don't have the moral fiber for it, and other people do.
I experienced telepathy on the night of my experience from the craft itself.
Yeah.
And it also opened my mind in that I had precognition, and I knew when things were going to happen before they happened.
Yeah, isn't it kind of weird how when you attach yourself to that consciousness, it's like there's no beginning and no end to the information, but it exists. It's like you don't have to have been in the future or the past. It's just there. It's always accessible.
I have a knowledge that I have not learned for myself.
Yeah, there's like a wisdom that I got that day that I can't explain, but it's like tuning in, just as they say. You just have to kind of tune in to the information, just like you would a radio channel on your car, you know.
Yeah, thank you, Jason, for confirming that, because that's exactly what happened to me.
Jason, was there ever any sort of conversations or intel that possibly stated any species had sort of integrated into society and may have sort of also integrated into sort of high position places within governments? Or
yeah, if they do look like us. I imagine they could if they really wanted to live a life here on Earth. It's possible. I think that they're very long-lived, though, and they'd have to fake their death somehow, and that kind of flies in the face of the logic. I think it's much easier, though, if they want to interact with our government, that they would do that behind closed doors and secretively. And that may be another layer of the problem to get to disclosure, is that maybe they already are doing this, and that there are people in government that already are fully aware of this and don't want anybody else to know about it.
I mean,
How
I think
many
it was.
different types do you know of, Jason? Sorry to interrupt, Daniel.
That's right.
Grand total, ones that I actually have seen for myself. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5. And how many are here that are living here on Earth, or in Earth, I should say?
Wow, that's a good question. I don't know, honestly. I think I know that some of them are, like the tall whites and the grays, that, yeah, they're here temporarily, most of them. The Nordics, they seem to be always here. I think many of them kind of like volunteer for work here on Earth, and helping people. That's what I think some of them do for a pastime, honestly. They're just so benevolent and loving. That's something that they find a penchant for, and they just love to do that. So the Nordics are quite nice. Gosh, the other ones, the other two races, they were just horrible. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've presented some of that evidence and got a strike for it.
Yeah. So they even exuded evil when I got near them. Let me put it that way.
Oh, wow.
Why do you think our military are setting ambushes then and shooting them down if they're so benevolent? I can't even speak.
I think that gives, to me, I think that is a good indicator that they still view all of this as a threat, in that they want the technology, because even though the NHI haven't done anything to us, they still are like, well, there could come a day. So they're going to try to shoot down as many as they can, reverse engineer what they can, in the hopes that maybe they can defend our planet. And maybe it's a futile gesture. I think they've
Do you
always
think
been
it's
out.
something to do with suppressing our consciousness because of the way that they can open our minds?
That's something that, honestly, I think anybody who's experienced the telepathy, I think that is something that we can control if we're aware of ourselves. Just like when I was there when the being had felt disgust about the people at Dreamland, I had to have the self-awareness to go, oh, I'm not disgusted, even though I feel like I'm feeling the emotion myself. So it must be coming from him. And the same thing can be said that if they're doing this without any other, you don't even know they're around, and all of a sudden a thought pops in your head, and you can sit there and go, well, crap, I never think of that. Who said that to me? That's the kind of stuff that they can do. And you've got to be quick, and that's why it's so important that we really learn who we are. You take your skill set and your gifts, and you use them in life as best you can. Because when you find your purpose, there's nothing going to get in your way, and there's no tricks of the mind that people can play on you. Because as soon as a rogue thought pops in your head, you're going to know that it didn't come from you. You're going to be like, well, wait a minute, that's out of character. I don't think that way. I'm a kind, gentle person. Why would I wish to be angry right now? That's what you have to do. You have to have that kind of awareness,
Jason, can you tell us anything more about the oceans and the USOs? Thanks for coming on, by the way, and thank you. Can you elaborate on the oceans and the USOs for a second? A lot of people are asking.
Well, I would say that in my military mindset and analytical mindset, that it's a very good idea to have underwater bases. And we do have some in the Navy, in our navies. They have actually built some. And I would think that NHIs would find it just as good, because they know we can't go down very far. Maybe they can with their technology. So great place for them to hide. And it appears that that's what's kind of going on, as well as the fact that it seems like they can even fly through the sides of mountains. And there's like entire bases inside the mountains, like in Mount Shasta,
Okay. I'm going to drop down and give someone else a chance. That's all I wanted to ask you, Jason. Thank you. Thanks very much. Pleasure to meet you. Nice one, lads.
Cheers, nice one. Guys, I think, Jason, is that your time done, or are you happy to stay a bit longer?
Well, I just like when I do need to go, but
all right.
I do want to put a plug in for my fund.
Quickly first, for that theory, we'll close it down, and then you can tell everyone about that, which he will share a picture where you are, and then so go on, Dan.
Yeah, Jason, we all just want to really thank you so much for coming on tonight. Honestly, we've all been so excited, really have. All I wanted to really ask is, from your story, what is the message that you want people to take from it? And, how would you want us to put your story out there, basically?
Well, I would want everybody to take seriously the thought that we're not alone, first of all. Second of all, take seriously your own life, your own thoughts, your own desires and dreams to what you know you can be. And realize that each one of us is making a choice to be suppressed and or to succeed in those dreams. So I would say that get used to the idea that you're the one in control, and that when you're in control, it actually ends up being a better world, because when I think people are themselves, they're actually more loving and more kind, and they don't let other things and emotions get in the way. So that's the one thing I would want to take you guys to take away, is that number one, we're not alone. Number two, you're the ones making the difference.
All right, thank you. I'll go on, Jason. Share your fund.
Okay. Here in America, I did talk to some folks, and I did want to set up a fund that we are now calling the First Hand Fund. It's for other whistleblowers to come forward, and I want them to have some resources because, as you know, I've already told you about my difficulties. I want to offer any other whistleblowers that come after me a better landing zone so that they can bridge into the kind of life that this ends up becoming. So that fund would be used to help those people. But anyway, I gave the link to the host, and I think he's going to post that up for you guys to look at that. And if you feel like donating, go ahead and donate to that. I'd really appreciate it. And that's near and dear to my heart, because I want to do a lot with that fund where, it's not just about becoming a whistleblower, but you might even lose your job. You might be suffering PTSD. Who knows? You might have even been exposed to like hazardous materials in a burn pit, and you need medical help, and you just haven't been able to say it because you've been in a secretive program. All these things are the things that I know my friends who are still in the program might be suffering through. So I'm offering that up, that if you want to give to that First Hand Fund.
Yeah, we'll have a picture up in a minute of the website for everyone. If you want to go, I'll be donating. I'm sure Matt, Daniel, everyone in the comments and the.
I will do a video and I will share it for sure. No problem there.
All right, thank you.
All right, Jason, it's been a pleasure. You're welcome. Anyone, most of us are live. If you're ever on TikTok, more than welcome to jump in anyone's live, have a chat if you want. And thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you guys all had great questions, and I appreciated every minute of it. Thank you very much, you guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good talking to you. Thank you.
All right. Sure.
Thank you.
Hello, folks. We have a Jason Sands live interview exclusively. It was on TikTok. It is now going on to YouTube for you to take a look at. It was 2 hours long. We do have a part two, and in part two, Lenville Logan joins him, and that's over 2 hours, about 2 to 3 hours as well. So sit back, get yourself a brew, and enjoy.